name is Marshall Lee of DonkeyJawProjects.com, and today I want to talk about how I color comics on Clip Studio Paint. So with comic book coloring, I'm not necessarily the foremost expert or anything like that. I'm actually relatively new to it. When I was working on this project, Sword of the Samurai, for the Legends of the Lone Wolf anthology that's coming out soon, I was happy to do it, and I did everything for this. I did the art, the penciling. The only thing I didn't do was the writing. And I did the lettering and the inking, and then I did the coloring. But when it came to the coloring stage, I was a little bit hesitant, and because I've colored things, I've colored single images and things like that, but when it comes to coloring comics, I've only done it a few times, 1 or 2 pages here or there, and I remember it being really hard. It can get very complicated compared to a typical illustration sometimes. So I was a little bit hesitant. I almost wanted to say, you know what, can we have somebody else color this? But I decided to stick to it and say, you know what, this is going to be a great opportunity to learn. And after about 10 pages of comics, I feel like I'm in a much more comfortable place of coloring comics. I still have a long way to go to get good at it, but I feel much more comfortable with the tools with Clip Studio Paint. So I'm going to share what I've learned here with you guys. And you can use anything to color comics. You don't have to use Clip Studio Paint. That's just what I'm using at the moment. But you can use anything from Photoshop, Krita. You don't even have to go digital. I've seen people color comics with even crayons or Copics or colored pencils, watercolors. There's so many different things. It's not really about the tool as much as it's about the artist and the artist's preference for that particular project. So the first step into coloring is to make sure you've prepared your page, and depending on if you scanned in physical pencils and or inks, or if you've actually done the art on the computer, you might have to go through some different processes, but I created this on the computer so I don't have to do so much with cleanup and everything. You could do a few different things to clean up a page, but here again, I do have white inside of, it's like I drew on a white canvas. Now that's not actually how I did it, but I just wanted to show you, because sometimes you'll have like sound effects and stuff that are colored white, but you want all these inks to be on one specific layer. And sometimes you'll have multiple layers for different things. I mean, you do want to keep the lettering separate, but other than that, you might want the sound effects, like I do, to be with the whole inks layer. So what I'll do is I'll merge the layers down so that I only have one ink layer. And then sometimes, like, the sound effects will have white in them still, or some of the other pieces might, or you might have used by accident like a white to kind of erase or something. Sometimes there's little funny things like that, where there's inconsistencies and it's not just black and transparent. So what you want to do is go to Edit and go to Convert Brightness to Opacity, and this will automatically turn everything that's not black into transparency. And then you can turn on a layer underneath that's just white, like this, and so now you have separate inks that you can use. Alright, so the next step is to flat out the panels and just the bigger things. This is where I do the sound effects and the individual panels, and I just leave it very simple like that. So you want to pick different colors that are easy to be separated. You don't want to pick like this green and this green is like maybe a little too close to each other, but I think it'll work. I mean, you get to a point where you only have so many colors you can use, but there's enough difference there where this will separate from this. See what I mean? So the point of flatting is so that you're able to work on all of these little separate areas as you go. And so the way I do this is I use the I press U on the keyboard. Oh, let me just Command D to get rid of that selection. Now I press U on the keyboard, and that gives me this lasso fill tool. Let's see if I can kind of show you. This is the lasso fill tool. I love this tool. I use this a lot for coloring and rendering, and also for flatting. I just use it constantly. So what it does is, you can make a selection and it will automatically fill the area that you selected. So for instance, so here I'll just show you. For instance, you can do this. Oh, it didn't do it because I have white selected as the color. So let's say I take like kind of an orangey sort of color here for the bear, and see how I did that. And when you do it, you can kind of leave it open and it'll connect those areas. So or you can actually kind of come closer and kind of close it. Either way kind of works. But this is a really amazing tool. It's revolutionized the way I do things. So I'm going to go back and redo this. I actually don't always use the lasso fill tool. Here I'm going to use the polyline right here. You can use all the different selection styles. You can use the lasso, you can use a square, rectangle. Right now I'm going to use the polyline because it's pretty easy to kind of get some of those straight lines, and also the less than straight lines. So right here I'm just selecting all the areas where the bear is. I've already colored the sound effect there, so it won't, when I press the fill tool, it will not color in that area. Connect it and then press G to fill, and you have to press G a couple times to get to the right fill area. This is gradient. It went automatically to gradient. This is the regular fill, and here I'll just go to referring only to the editing layer, but there's also the contour line paint, and I'll be honest, I don't even know what that does. But I'll go scroll back over by hitting G to the fill. And sorry, I'm not, I don't do this like professionally with the screen capture, but here we go. So I just press fill, and I did that white before, and that meant that transparency wasn't there, so I forgot about that. So I'll just click in there, and now it's good. So again, this is the bigger shapes here. So let me get like another color. I'll get like a purple, and again, we can do this with the polyline tool, and we're just trying to, and again, it's going to go over that blue there, but it won't color in that area. So yeah, so here we go. We're going to press G again, go over to the fill, and there we go. So now I am flatted as far as panels go. So I like to do 3 layers kind of when it comes to coloring. I'll press Command D to get rid of that selection. So what I do is I'll take this panel flatting, and I will duplicate it and create another flat copy where I go into more detail. So now I have the panels flatted out, so if I need to go back and just select like a whole panel to do some work on, I can do that. But I can also and sometimes I'll do big areas, like I'll do the bear sometimes, like this whole huge space is one color. So even on the basic layer, I might do a big area like that. I didn't this time, but so this is the more detailed area. So now I have a lot of littler things that are selected here. And again, I use I often use the U, click U, and you get that kind of fill thing. So I'll kind of show you how that works here. So this is the lasso fill when you press U, and I'm selecting around this little explosion spot. Might be a little bit messy because I'm, you know, doing this tutorial, but I'll fix it later. And then like that. Oh, I didn't press a color, so I'll undo that. See, this is one thing that I've noticed is you gotta make sure you're selected on the right layer, and I've done so many things on the wrong layers before, and it's frustrating, but you know, that's what happens sometimes, and you have to either undo and fix it, or sometimes you just need to find a way to work around it. I don't know. I'm still learning. But here we go again. Lasso fill, bam, it's right there. Obviously I'll do a more careful version of that later, but you do that until you've gotten all your sections that you want separated, and then you can go in and work with any one of those. Press the wand tool, and I can just work with this color or these eyes, and you know, there's a lot of different things you can do here. You can adjust so that it selects follow adjacent pixel, so command D. When you do that, it'll select just like this eye. See what I mean? Even though this same color is over here, but when you click off the follow adjacent pixel, take off the selection, and you click it, it'll click all of that color wherever it is. See, oh, it's over here too, wherever it is on the page. So that's something you'll constantly be toggling back and forth while you're working on your project, because you may or may not want to, like sometimes I'll want a gradient on these eyes, but I don't want that same gradient on these eyes. So you know, I'll want to make sure I do follow adjacent pixel and just do these eyes, and then I'll press shift to add, so you can add a selection, and then now these aren't selected but these are, you know. So you know, there's a lot of different things you can do. Alright, so now I have my page flatted fully, and it's time to get into the rendering. And so this is what I do here. I have, like I said, my flats layer with just the panels, and then I have the flats copy with the more detailed sections flatted out. And then I'll take this flats copy, and I will let's see, I'm using the mouse here too. I will double click on it, or I think that's what it is, right? And then I will duplicate layer, and then I will take that and title it colors. You can title them however you like, but this is how I do it. I'm a little bit lazy, so flats and flats copy does fine, even though I could put like panel flats here and detail flats here and then colors or something here. But so now these are both the same thing, so now I don't have to mess with this. But if I mess something up on the colors, or I need to get back to, you know, flatting those specific sections, I still have a copy of it right here, and I end up using that a lot. So once again, like I said, I have the simple flats. You know, here I'll kind of show you as I scroll through them. I have, you know, the simple flats layer with the panels, then I have the detailed, and now in the color layer I'm going to do the rendering, which I'll put in some shadow. Usually I try to get like a good local color on here when I do the flats, so these are the colors that it's basically going to be. There's different techniques. You don't necessarily have to even use local color as much, you know. You can, it doesn't really matter. There's a lot of different techniques, but it almost doesn't matter what things are colored. Sometimes you just want to get good value, good contrast, you know, tones and whatnot. And you know, you want to set a mood, so sometimes things will be colored, like skin might be colored purple or orange or yellow, you know, just because it's within certain lighting or different kind of a mood. But I've been going with basic local color a lot. I haven't been going too crazy with that kind of thing in this book because I'm still learning, and you know, I'm not as confident with some of those techniques yet that are maybe a little more advanced. So what I'm doing here is, although you'll see right here is kind of, I'm going to try a little knockout effect. I think that's what they call it, a knockout, where it's like in the foreground and it's just kind of one flat color. Or I might go in with some darker purples just to, you know, differentiate a little bit of shadow there or something, you know, bring a little bit of contrast in there, but still just keep it kind of flat, and then have everything else rendered, because that way, you know, you see this little foreground area, but then over here is really where the focal point is, because they're about to go at it, you know, type of thing. So you know, that's what I'm doing. So now it's time to do the rendering, and like I said, I love to use the lasso fill tool here. So for example, let's go with this bear here, because it doesn't have to be super detailed. I'll zoom in so you can see it better. I'll try to zoom in if my computer will let, whoops, what I'm doing is making the brush bigger instead of that. So now I'm zooming in. Again, I'm still pretty new. I mess things up constantly. So what I do a lot of times, this is going to be the basic color of the bear. You can see there's light coming from the fire here, but that's a little bit behind him, so it's going to be mostly dark in here in shadow, but there will be some highlighting on that side. And so we'll see what we can do here. Again, I'm going to hit U so I can get that lasso fill tool going. Actually, first I'm going to put I, which selects the color of the bear, the brown, and then over here I'm going to take, it's already at that brown, and I'm just going to slide it down a bit to where I think makes sense, a little darker. And then I'm going back over here, and then you can, this is a very simple way to approach coloring. There's other ways that are more sophisticated, you know, you can get into color theory and stuff, and I do that sometimes, but right now this is the way I'm going about it with this specific project right at the moment. So there are parts of this comic where I'm going for some other effects too, but right now I'm just doing something simple. So anyways, so here we go. I got the lasso tool, I pressed U, and you know, there's kind of a little bit of fur texture here. Oh, you know what I forgot to do? I forgot to select the spare. So we're gonna do that. Get the wand tool by pressing W, and I selected it, and it is on follow adjacent pixel, so you see it didn't select this bear. It doesn't really matter at this point because I'm not doing any effects or gradients, but once again I will go in here with the U, the lasso fill tool, and I can kind of do this. I feel like there might be some rim lighting over here, maybe some blue from the moon or something, and it doesn't have to be exact. I can go and fix all of this at some point, but there you go. I'm already getting a basic situation here of shading, and you know, obviously I can go in further and really work that out, and I'm kind of doing a rough version of it here for you guys just so you can see. I'll probably go back in and redo that, but so there you see, like, that's how I kind of shadow. And then usually I'll do the shadowing and stuff on the regular colors layer, and then anything else I will do. So I got the, you know, the basic panel flats, then I got the detail flats, then I got the colors and rendering. And then above that, underneath the inks, I will do things like gradients, or you know, I'll do like just different effects like highlights or glow effects or textures, or color holds actually go above the inks. So you know, there's a lot of different things you can do, but you know, this is basically how I set it up. You know, basic panel flats, detailed flats, color rendering, and then everything on top of that is just bonus. icing on the cake. Like when I do the fire, there's going to be a bit of a glowy effect, and I'm not really great at the glowy effect things, but I'll try. You know, so yeah, that's basically what I do. So here you can see what for me is basically a finished comic book page, and this is actually the page previously to the one I'm working on now. But I wanted to show you maybe some of the finishing stuff that I do. So one thing that I'll do sometimes is, you know, to unify the colors, I'll put like a shade over it, but then put the opacity down. So it's going to be a little bit hard to show you, I guess, but here you can see I have like this purple color that's over this whole thing, except for that top panel. I have a separate color over that top panel that's also kind of purple, so you can see the difference when I take those away. Look at the top panel and you can see, hopefully you can see, oh, see there? So that's just the top panel, and it's, yes, it's brighter, but you know, this kind of creates a little bit more of a mood and a little bit more of a unification of colors. And you can put the opacity to whatever you like. Right now it's at 31%. I could drop it lower to about 15%, and so it's less of a difference. There's the without it, and there's with it. It's kind of hard to see on the computer, or on the phone. Yeah, there's the difference. So it unifies it. Sometimes you want to keep it kind of in the gray range, because gray actually unifies color pretty well, because everything is toned to a certain level of gray, just in real life, in color. You know, it's mixed in everywhere. I don't know, there's other YouTube videos from other people where they can explain that much better than I can explain it, but you know, just definitely look that up, you know, how, you know, color theory, and you'll start to find some of these videos. So again, with let's take the whole, all that off, and this is just the bright saturated colors without that, you know, layer on. Now I put them back on, and it's a little bit more unified, but it's still pretty bright. Another thing I'll go in and do is I will go to and there's probably more I can do. Again, I'm kind of new at all this, but I will go to Edit, Tonal Correction, and do Brightness Contrast, and actually cancel. Let me at least, I gotta click the right layer, you know, so I'll go to the color layer, and I will go to Edit, Tonal Correction, Brightness Contrast, and I will play with those levels as well. And you know, I can make it really contrasty. That looks kind of ugly. I can take some of the contrast down. That actually makes it look even more unified, but it's, you know, it's not as, it doesn't have as much contrast, and contrast is a really good thing. You can turn the preview on and off. Let's see, so I go with like a crazy contrast, turn the preview on, turn it off, and you can change the brightness as well. And so that's a good way to kind of start to help the overall picture look good together, you know. So I'll cancel that. There's probably a lot of other things you can do too, but that's what I do for finishing a page. And you know, I give it some time too. Like right now, I don't really like how this this sound effect right here is rendered. I'm probably going to go back and change that. And you know, there might, I think these rocks right here, they're a little bit plain, so I might want to go back in and put a little bit more shading and shadow in there, just to cut up the rocks and give them a little bit more dimensionality. But other than that, I think this page is pretty much finished. So I will do some of those adjustments at some point and be done with it, you know. So hopefully that was helpful. You know, I'm not an expert. There's a lot of things that you guys probably know that maybe even are better techniques, you know, or just to add to that or subtract from that. But and not getting too deep into color theory, but that is something you really want to study. Understanding how color works, practice it, try it. It's good to, like, I learned a lot of my color stuff just from like art classes in high school and some other classes. There was, I think, some college classes I took. Can't remember. I don't think I took painting college classes, but I've taken other art classes in college, and different things like that. And but doing it physically will actually help you to bring that over to digital as well. But you could just learn it all on digital as well. But definitely, I mean, there's tons of YouTube tutorials about color theory, but the more you practice color theory and understand it, the better and better your pages will look. And there's a lot of cool effects. Color can get very complicated. It's something that is very overwhelming. Like, you can do so much with color, and so don't feel intimidated by it. Just go at it. Like I said, I was hesitant to start even this project, but now I feel like I have a lot more control over being able to color a comic book page. I still might want to hire people to do some of my coloring for me, but I know that in a pinch, if I have to, I can color my own comics and they'll look pretty decent. I'm not saying that I'm necessarily the best or even maybe professional. I don't know, but I'll let you guys judge that. But I think it's passable. It's something that I feel like looks pretty good to me. So yeah, that's how I do coloring in Clip Studio Paint, and hopefully that was helpful for you. Let me know in the comments. All right, I'll talk to you later.